Hello everyone, my name is Emilia and I will have a pleasure today to share with you some practical business knowledge related mainly to two business processes, sales and human resources. Apart from the fact that I'm going to tell you a little bit more about those two processes, what I decided to embrace during today's meeting, which is going to take around 60 minutes, first of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about typical business processes and trends, which are right now quite popular if we're talking about the business world. I will concentrate on that kind of the topics, which I know that adult students, so probably your potential clients, they will really like and probably appreciate, because mostly those trends that I'm going to talk about, they are the typical ones which are just going to happen, and they are happening on a daily basis in business. Second thing which I'm going to concentrate on are going to be typical business misunderstandings. So some phrases and vocabulary that quite typically, if we're talking about even sometimes the dictionaries and typical vocabulary included in dictionaries versus the reality, they can cause a little bit of problems. Finally, of course, I'm going to mention a little bit more about those processes I stated at the very beginning. So I will tell you a little bit more about sales, how it is designed, and of course about human resources. And in fact, I already said finally, but I should have said pre-finally, because at the very end, I will just share with you the list of typical topics that can be as well appreciated by your potential clients. I really hope that the topic that I'm going to share with you and the topics that I'm going to share with you today, they're going to be valuable, and that you will be able to expand your business knowledge and of course make your lessons and classes even more attractive, if that's of course even possible. Few words probably before I'm going to move further about myself. So that you could know if I'm the right person, of course, here. If it is about my professional story, it's related strictly to human resources, because I have been working in that area for more than 15 years right now. I have been working in different kind of the countries, getting to know different kind of the processes, not only related to human resources, but also to customer service, to sales, to production, and many, many others. I was able to acquire my knowledge among the others in the USA, in China and India. Right now, I'm located in Ireland, and here, of course, I'm also expanding my business knowledge. Apart from the fact that I'm by heart, even I could probably say, dedicated strictly to human resources, I'm also a business trainer. I run different kind of the trainings connected among the others with, for example, communication, cross-cultural communication, with leadership, and of course with human resources. And due to the fact that I have always had that kind of possibility to work mainly in international environment, I run also the business English courses. Of course, I graduated from the English philology, so I have also my preparation for that particular type of the job which I also run. And I have been running the business English courses for around 20 years right now. I have that kind of philosophy that I run only that kind of the courses in which I can share, expand my practical knowledge. That's why something what I do is, for example, the course English for human resources, for recruiters, for customer service, for different kind of, again, aspects which are connected with my practical expertise. What I also do is that I run different kind of courses for teachers, especially, of course, those ones who collaborate with adult clients. And during these courses, obviously, I'm not teaching English, because I can imagine that you are the ones who could teach me rather English. But what I do is that I rather share my practical business knowledge, so that you could see how business works in practice, and make your courses, again, probably even a little bit more attractive. If you wish to get to know a little bit more about what I do, if you want to gain a little bit more information about the different kind of business processes, apart from what I'm going to share with you today, I can definitely invite you to contact us, because on our YouTube channel, which I'm going to also show at the very end, on our fan pages, you can find a lot of free content information, again, of course, related to these practical business processes. That's something what I wanted to share for the very beginning. And right now, I believe that I can move on already to the first part of our today's meeting. So a bit about the business trends. I decided to start with the trend which has been present in different kind of business environments already for many, many years. And that's the business model, which can be called shared service or also business process outsourcing. They both have quite similar formula because they are connected with running a specific type of the business process in one division. And how it works. If it is about shared services, they started entering the Polish market around 15, 20 years ago, especially in that kind of the areas like accounting, for example, payroll or HR administration, but also IT. And it works this way that if we have in all our structures, organizational structure, the shared service, it means that we work in international global company, the company which has probably quite huge scale of operations. And imagining that it would be the company which concentrates mainly on the production of cars, let's imagine. So the core business of that company again concentrates on car production. At the same time, for sure, that company has to manage all different kind of supportive processes, because they have to issue the invoices, they have to calculate payroll, they have to prepare proper documentation, but at the same time, this is not their main point of focus. It's just some kind of back office stuff. But still, of course, they have to manage that. So what some companies do, but again, rather the global ones, because it only makes sense if we're talking about big scale. What some companies do is that they decide that some of those back office processes, they're going to be shared with one of the divisions which is specifically established only to manage, for example, that process of accounting or payroll calculation or HR administration, which would mean that if we have, let's say, 20 divisions all over the world, and all of those divisions, they will be responsible for producing costs. In each of these divisions, at the same time, we have to, of course, issue the invoices. So what is going to happen is that when we are going to open the shared service, it will be one division located probably in that kind of the country, which is quite effective from the point of view of the cost, in which we can find proper qualified people. And in that one division, all the invoices from all the other 20 divisions, those located all around the world, those invoices, they are going to be issued in that one particular division, which is going to be called shared service. And it will work this way that employees who work in that division, they will be in fact serving the other divisions for the purpose of issuing those invoices. Still, of course, this is one of the divisions of that kind of the company. So it is not any kind of external provider, but they are going to aggregate all that processes connected with issuing invoices. And that's again the shared service. The idea of business process outsourcing, so BPOs, is quite similar, because the process which is going to be managed, it's exactly the same one. So it can be about accounting, it can be about payroll, it can be about HR administration, some kind of legal and compliance stuff, with the difference that this time we do not have one of the divisions, like internal divisions, managing that particular process, but we are going to have external provider which is performing that particular type of the tasks. So for example, again, issuing those invoices. So the only difference is that in case of shared service, we're going to have one of the internal divisions, and BPO, this is the external provider. The employees who work for that provider, they are of course also the external provider employees, and the difference connected with the employment. But the process is going to be managed exactly the same. We have another possibility if it is about different kind of outsourcing and business models, and that kind of the process is called ITO, so information technology outsourcing. The idea will be the same as BPO. The only thing here is that we have even specific name for one type of the process which is going to be managed by ITO. So obviously it's about IT services. Usually, for example, some kind of administrative stuff. It can be also connected with the situation that we are going to have this ITO in which people are going to manage, for example, the execution of some external systems. So everything in ITO is going to be done by, again, external provider if it is about specific IT processes. So BPO, ITO, they have exactly the same idea that it's about external provider. It's just that ITO is more specific. And if it is about BPO, we can talk about different kind of the processes. In terms of IT, what is very, very, very popular is also the idea of body leasing. It became quite popular a few years ago due to the fact that right now the job market is quite difficult, challenging, and also specific, of course, and it's not so easy to find good people, qualified people, and of course, the ones who are going to stay in the company for a little bit longer of time. So retention, like keeping people in the company, especially if we're talking about the IT business, is one of the typical challenges for most of the companies. That's why what they do sometimes is that they are considering two options. Either they can choose that first one, which I already mentioned, like ITO, and they can decide to outsource the process to external provider. But very often the companies, they are working on quite specific processes. Because, for example, they want to design some typical software dedicated only for that particular company. And of course, probably they could outsource that kind of the project to external company, but because of the fact that they know that implementation of that software will require a lot of contacts internally in the company, it will be connected with gaining a lot of knowledge about the internal processes of the company. They are pretty sure that outsourcing probably is not the best idea ever. That's why what they do is that they will still use the external provider, but this time the employees of that external provider will be physically working at the premises of the company. So here the difference is connected with the place where somebody is located. Because quite often, if we're talking about ITO, we're going to have still, of course, this external provider, but the employees of that provider will work at that provider, and probably they will be executing their tasks for several clients. In case of body leasing, it's more specific, I would say, because most probably here we are going to have one or few dedicated people from this external provider working only for one particular client. Of course, the duration of that collaboration can be different. Sometimes it's about few months, for example, and sometimes it can be even a few years. But the form of that collaboration is very specific, especially if we talk about the IT branch. So that's about shared services, BPO, ITO, and also body leasing. And there is one more trend, quite again popular lately, and that's something called self-service. That's the idea that if we are talking about different kind of supportive back office functions, for example, if we talk about submitting the request for annual leave, if we're talking about settlement of the business trips, if we're talking about applying for certain type of the benefits, Let's say a few years ago, something like that. So all these like back office tasks, they were mainly done by people working in that back office functions. So if I wanted, for example, to apply for leave, I had to go to the HR department and they were managing that leave for me in the system or in some form of the documentation. If I wanted to settle my business trip, I probably had to go to the accounting department and they were the ones who were operationally managing that particular task. And right now, what most of the companies do is that they implement different kind of applications, different kind of systems, enabling employees to manage all that kind of operational, but of course supportive tasks on their own. It means that right now, if I want to settle the business trip, I do not have to go to accounting department. If I want to check what is my level of unused leave, I do not have to go to HR department, but entering the proper system or application, I can check it on my own. And if I do it on my own, that's called self-service. Of course, it can't be connected with my regular function. So if normally I would work, for example, in the procurement department, and I would be responsible for also some kind of back office stuff. So let's say I would be sourcing the market and looking for the new suppliers. Of course, if I do that kind of the job, this back office job, this is just my core responsibility. But at the same time, if I work in that procurement department and I want to check what is my level of leave, then if I do it in application, in system, then I follow the self-service. Very, very popular trend nowadays, connected also with making the processes easier, empowering also the employees to do different kind of operational tasks on their own. If we talk also about some specific trends in business, I would say that one of the topics which I would definitely recommend for conversation or even the whole lesson with your clients, this is the topic connected with colors of organizations. The topic, in my opinion, is very fruitful. It can really give you a lot of valuable discussion. A lot of opinions can happen. So I would recommend that topic not only for individual meetings, but also for the group meetings, where you can talk about the idea of Frederick Laloux, who created the idea of evolution of the companies depending on their maturity and the way how the business is managed. And one of the colors, which right now is very popular, are so-called teal organizations, where the whole idea is connected mainly with managing the business without the typical roles of managers, without hierarchy, but rather there is that kind of the assumption that people are able to collaborate. They can take the accountability, they can introduce so-called peer accountability. And because of that, they do not need managers to be able to even execute, perform their tasks. So the topic quite interesting, especially that implementation of that kind of the business model is really not so easy. Some other topics that can be probably popular, I believe that mainly, for example, in IT or for the clients who work in construction business, it will be the very specific and typical at the same time type of the contract, time and material contract. And one more topic that I could probably also propose for a discussion is so-called gig contract, where the employees, they are going to be paid based on their results and not necessarily on the hours worked. I would say that if you want to touch that topic during the conversation with your client, I would probably combine it together with the overemployment. So gig contracts as the idea probably to manage the challenge of overemployment, which is also quite a typical problem nowadays for a lot of companies, especially, unfortunately, again, IT. And one more topic that I wanted to mention today, a very cozy one, I guess, is the topic of diversity and inclusion. It is quite popular and trendy nowadays to talk about inclusive environment, to talk about inclusive leadership, to implement different kind of initiatives, letting the people, no matter who they are, no matter how they behave, to be able to collaborate in different kind of environments. A lot of companies are right now talking about the differences, about the variety of people. They are employing people from different countries, nationalities, people of different age, people of different genders, people coming from different kind of environments, and they know that if they want all those people, if they want them to collaborate, communicate, and if they want to create some form of a cohesion, what they need to do is to create that kind of the environment where everybody is going to feel welcome. So probably, even if you checked what kind of topics are right now quite popular. If we talk, for example, about trainings or webinars, I can promise you that this topic of diversity and inclusion is going to be quite popular. At the same time, it's quite interesting and significant topic for the purpose of discussion. Why? Because at the same time, sorry for repeating that at the same time, because at the same time, that's the topic which is quite controversial, I would say, especially because a lot of companies, they don't exactly know how to implement it. They organize a lot of initiatives at the same time, not ensuring that the employees are going to feel safe and not necessarily they will even trust the managers or the whole organization. So sometimes if you're going to ask the participants of your courses, is diversity a trend or normality? I guess it can initiate quite interesting discussion. So again, probably I would recommend that particular topic also for discussion. And moving on to the second part, which I wanted to touch today, connected with different kind of misunderstandings, I would relate to different kind of terms, phrases, vocabulary that can be quite confusing for people. I would say not even because of some kind of mistakes in translation, but rather because of the fact that not necessarily we can compare different kind of provisions, different kind of the rules. And generally, if it is about different kind of the countries, we have, of course, the variety of those standards, regulations, and different kind of the processes. One of the terms which can be a little bit confusing if it comes to the business environment is the phrase fixed term contract. And of course, the obvious understanding of that term would mean that if I'm going to have the fixed term contract, I have the contract, employment one, with the company, for example, for 1 or 2 years. And in Polish realities, it works this way that if I'm going to start working in a certain company, probably at the very beginning, I'm going to receive the probation period contract. After that, probably I will get this fixed term contract. And only after that, I can receive also the indefinite permanent contract. But at the same time, if it is about the Polish realities, it rather works this way that if we propose somebody the employment contract from the very beginning, our assumption as a company is that we want this person to work with us for probably many years. So it's just about the labor law, which requires from us first providing to that person, let's say this probation contract. And after that, usually the companies are taking the decision, maybe 1 more year with that definite contract. And only then we're going to offer to the employee the indefinite contract. And in some of the Western European countries, it works this way that this fixed term contract from the very, very beginning is treated as a form of seasonal contract. So it might happen that if I'm going to work in Poland and I will inform my manager that I offered right now I offered the employment contracts, let's say to a few new employees, and all of them, they're going to have this fixed term contract. The understanding of that manager, if that person is in different kind of the country, but let's say somewhere in Europe, probably that kind of the manager is going to think, okay, so as I can understand, she right now employed few people, probably for 1 year. And then again, we're going to come back to the previous level of the headcount. And my intention, because of the Polish realities, is that I employed right now few people. They will have a contract for 1 year, but after that, I want to prolong this contract for indefinite period. That's why that kind of the understanding of the contract can be a little bit misleading because of different rules connected with the labor law. In Polish realities, therefore, we can use also the term definite contract, which is not going to be so confusing. Another type of the contract, which is going to be quite specific, if we talk about the Polish realities, it will be the specific task or specific work contract, which is connected with the situation that when I'm going to deliver to the company some certain type of the effect of my work, that's how I'm going to be paid. On the other hand, we can also talk about civil contract, or in other words, contract of mandate, although civil contract name, that's much more popular. And this is the situation which is also quite popular, or the type of the contract which is also quite popular in Polish realities, where we employ somebody, or we in fact provide that form of collaboration to some certain type of the person. For example, to work, let's say, in a shop, where that person is going to be usually settled based on the number of hours worked. So that's not going to be employment contract, no labor law, but rather civil code. And if we talk about international realities, in the first case, specific task or work contract, it can be compared with gig contract, and civil contract, it can be connected or compared with 0 hours contract. It's not the same. That's why usually if we have to inform the foreign divisions about those two types of contracts, first we still have to explain how they work, but let's say that it can be compared. So gig contract and 0 hours contract. Another term which is quite specific is the term compassionate leave, which formally can be translated as also the Polish urlop okolicznościowy. But at the same time, I think I would never ever use that term if it is about the Polish rules and Polish realities, although I can admit that sometime I can see, or maybe I should rather say I could see, because right now I think it's not fortunately happening anymore, but I can admit that in different kind of ERP systems, I could see that name to talk about our Polish urlop okolicznościowy, which could be a little bit strange because let's say I want to probably get married, and I'm not sure if I should then say that I'm taking the compassionate leave. Maybe after some time I will say it, but let's say that from the very beginning, I would rather avoid it. So definitely, if it is about Polish realities, we would rather say that we're taking occasional, or in other words, special leave. I believe that in dictionaries we will not find this name, but this is the practice in business, that we talk about occasional, special leave. So, for example, if somebody is going to take 3 days for, unfortunately, funeral, or fortunately for the wedding, then we are talking about occasional leave, not compassionate leave, and we have to explain it to our foreign peers. Similar situation will happen in case of sick allowance or sick pay, because that two terms, they are also confusing and definitely not understood at the first glance to any kind of foreign peers, which means that we have to explain to them that if we're going to go on a sick leave, first we will receive the sick pay. So this is the money which is going to be paid by the company. And after that, after 33 days, according to the Polish regulations, of course, still depending on the age, we are going to get the sick allowance, which is to be paid by Social Security institution. And definitely, if we're just going to use those two terms like sick pay, sick allowance internationally, nobody will know what it means unless, of course, that person collaborates with Polish people. So usually, this is also something that we have to explain. I believe two more things which I wanted to mention from the point of view of those misunderstandings: subordinate, peer, coworker, supervisor, or superior probably as well. It's something very specific, because if we talk about the organizational structure, typical hierarchical structure, and at the same time, if we combine it with different kind of the cultures and business models, we will see that depending on the country, not everywhere we can use the phrase like subordinate, supervisor, or sometimes already even employee. Because in that kind of the cultures, like for example in the USA, we focus rather on partnership. So we do not want to show that somebody is higher in the hierarchy or somebody is subordinate, but we want to show that we are all on the same level. That's why in that kind of the countries, like again, for example, the USA, we will rather use the phrase peer. We can also say coworker, but even if I'm manager, I'm not going to say that I have my subordinates or my employees. Everybody is my peer, coworker, or I can also say associate. Although, on the other hand, if I wanted probably to move to China, that would be perfectly okay, because they are definitely much more hierarchical. And one more difference between different kind of the phrases: responsibility, accountability, and liability. If we're talking about responsibility, and we will decide who is responsible for what kind of the tasks, who is responsible for what kind of the decisions. If it is about that first aspect, so task and duties, we will talk about the responsibility. But if we want to check what person in the company is going to take the decisions, what person is going to bear the responsibility for those decisions, then we will talk about the accountability. So let's say that from the point of view of business processes, if it is about responsibility, it's like the lower level, because then I'm just executing the tasks. But if I have empowerment to take decisions, this is my level of accountability. That's one of the differences. At the same time, the word accountability is used in the companies if we want to talk about the competence. If we are then looking for the person who is going to be employed, for example, for some managerial positions, probably in the list of the requirements, we will write that we are looking for somebody with high level of accountability, not responsibility. And at the same time, looking, for example, for the candidate, let's say related to finance department, maybe even like the CFO, financial officer, probably in that case, we'll also mention the liability. So financial and legal responsibility. Formally, all those words, they could be translated exactly the same, but we use them in a little bit different areas and meanings. Not everybody in business knows that, I mean, those differences. So sometimes it's also worth to clarify it. After misunderstandings, I believe it's time to move a little bit to those two processes I was mentioning: sales and also human resources. In terms of sales, something what is very, very popular lately is the redesign of the whole end-to-end process. For many years, and in most of the companies, it was quite popular that we had people who were on the position, for example, of sales representative, and they were responsible for both acquiring new potential clients, prospects. They were responsible for building relations with that potential clients. They were responsible, of course, for negotiating, for closing the deal, and then for maintaining the rapport with that particular clients. That's why they were responsible for end-to-end process, from the moment when they were trying to acquire new clients till the moment when they were still upselling, upselling, and upselling. So selling more, for example, expensive products. And right now, it's quite popular to divide that function. So for example, to divide the function of the sales representative into two separate processes. So somebody who will be responsible for this first part of the process, acquiring new clients, starting building relations with those clients, negotiating with them, proposing different kind of the functionalities of the product, trying, of course, to encourage the client to buy the certain type of the product. That kind of the process is going to be in hands of hunters. And once they are going to acquire the client, they are going to close the deal, sign the contract with the client. So let's say the client is already in the base. We know that we started selling. They will hand over that particular client to the second part of the process, so to farmers. And farmers, they are going to be responsible for nourishing the process, for making sure that those clients are going to be retained by the company, for selling more, and of course, still generating the profits with that client. So generally, it's about maintaining good relations with that particular group of the clients. So at the beginning, if we are going to acquire the client, hunters, and then they're going to be responsible only for closing the deal, handing over the further responsibilities to farmers. In a lot of companies, we have right now that kind of the divisions, and even formally, if it is about the departments, if it is about the names of the positions, we can call some people hunters, some people farmers, and it really formally works like that from the point of view of that sales process. What is also quite specific, if we concentrate strictly on sales, is one of the very, very initial processes connected, of course, with hunters, although at the same time, very often that particular process that you can see here, like lead generation, it's not even going to be done by hunters, but by specific group of people, like lead generation specialist or expert, for example. And what that particular person is going to do is that they will explore the market. They will be generally looking for any potential contacts, for any potential prospects, clients. And what they will do is that they will be responsible for cold calling and cold mailing. So they will have, for example, the list of 100 potential clients. They will take the phone and they will start calling just to initiate the contact with that potential client. And that will be enough if it is about their role. They will just initiate the contact. And if the client is going to approve the further contact, they will this time also hand over that particular client to Hunter. So all that process, in fact, connected with acquiring the clients, with negotiations, with attracting the clients to buy our products, to purchase our products, it's going to be already in hands of hunters. So this lead generation area, they're just going to be responsible for that first initial contact. They can do cold calling or, of course, cold mailing. So they will be just writing emails, of course, to attract the client or to even inform the client that we exist and we would like to somehow initiate the contact with them. If it is about, probably I would this time rather say farmers, they are going to be responsible also for so-called upselling and cross-selling. Upselling is connected with the situation that if the client already bought a car from us, probably, assuming that of course that person can afford it, we are going to sell to that client a better car, more expensive, with many more functionalities, and that's about upselling. So selling something more expensive with more functionalities, generally of course selling more. And cross-selling is going to be connected with selling some supplementary products, so something additional, which means that probably if the client bought from me the car, if it is about a different kind of the gadgets, those gadgets are going to be connected with cross-selling. So we're just selling something additional to make the product even better, not only because of the gadgets, but also with some additional products that the client can buy. That's something typical if we talk about sales. Of course, there are many, many more aspects. There is probably some kind of typical also vocabulary connected with sales. Although today I just wanted to concentrate on that because you can definitely also talk with your clients who work somewhere there in sales about their opinion. Do they think that this division into farmers and hunters, is that a good idea or maybe not? What are going to be, for example, the differences in competences? What kind of the competences are required from farmers? What kind of the competences are required from hunters? You can ask them about the methods, how this lead generation can be done. You can ask them what the companies can offer, for example, for the purpose of cross-selling. So I guess that already from that few aspects, we can create some interesting topics for conversations. And HR, human resources. The topics which can be the hot ones, I would also say, for the purpose of discussion, is definitely the topic of career crafting, very, very popular lately. It's connected with the fact that lately more and more organizations, they're flattening their structures. So they do not offer anymore many levels of the organizational structure, which at the same time means that sometimes the possibilities, especially of vertical advancement, they are a bit limited. So what companies had to do is to redesign a little bit the way how people think about their development in the organization. And what they also had to do was to make sure that everybody who is employed in the company, no matter what kind of position they have, they will see that what they do, it really has meaning and that people, everybody, they have impact on the company. And that's about career crafting, that we are designing our position, our job, our relations also with other people in that way to make sure that we will feel that our job matters, that we will feel that we are developing and we want to stay with the company. So career crafting is connected with redesigning our way of thinking about the position, which means that even if I'm going to be responsible, let's say, for designing the presentations for the purpose of trainings, and my idea will be that this is extremely boring job, and I'm just massively producing these presentations, probably with the career crafting, I will understand that without this presentation, the business trainers, they wouldn't be able to run the trainings. And without those trainings, the clients wouldn't be able to develop their employees. So without my presentation, no development could happen. I could probably also understand from the social point of view that because of the fact that I'm designing this presentation, I have a lot of contacts with all the people in my organization because I design different kind of the presentations. So I can expand my business knowledge in different kind of areas. So for me, that's also development. So I can have a look at my career from different kind of perspectives, not only from the point of view of how I can develop in my scope of responsibilities, but generally how, because of my job, I can generally develop in my organization. That topic of career crafting is also connected with spider web development. Probably if you're going to mention that topic to some of the clients, they will not know this word because it is quite new trend. So spider web development is connected with also the new way how we treat development in the company. It's not anymore only about the vertical development, that from junior, I'm going to climb up career ladder and become finally the manager, but I can also develop laterally to different positions in my department, to different positions in other departments. At the same time, I can develop in different kind of dimensions because I can participate in different kind of the projects. I can still work in my department, and at the same time, I can participate in projects. From time to time, I can be, for example, involved into some kind of task or job rotation. So be partially also, let's say, employed by different kind of the departments. So right now, if we're talking about development, it's really multidimensional. That's why we have the spider web development, different directions, different possibilities. And at the same time, I also mentioned that right now, what is very popular is so-called lateral development. It's connected with flattening those structures, because in the past, if we were to consider typical hierarchical structure, we had a lot of levels, especially managers. And usually if it was about operational employees, not necessarily they were responsible for taking any kind of decisions. They had just their scope of responsibilities and they were responsible for running their tasks. And on a daily basis, that's what they were doing. Again, not necessarily taking any decisions. But right now, if we have more and more flat structures, so not so many managers, usually managers, they have much wider span of control. It means that they are not able to operationally manage all the processes and they are not able to take decisions. So a lot of companies right now invest into increasing the awareness of the employees, that awareness which is connected with taking the ownership for their tasks and for the whole team. And that's about lateral leadership. That even if I'm the specialist, I'm an expert, I can be even the junior, I feel that I have to dedicate myself, I have to dedicate my effort, skills, competences into delivering the results the best that I can. And I don't need my manager to control me, to observe me, to observe me, to observe me. Sorry, I'm sorry. Because I'm taking the ownership. And the same will be connected with the rest of my team. We will be working together. And even if our manager is not going to control us, even if our manager will be not delegating the duties on a daily basis, we can collaborate, we can even exchange the experiences, and we can take the decisions knowing what are the dependencies between our work. So lateral leadership, also very popular topic. That's something from the point of view of sales and human resources. I mentioned at the very beginning that I'm going also to share with you some of the valuable topics that can be used for the purpose of discussion. If you want, of course, to gain more knowledge about those topics, you can definitely find in the internet articles related to all of them. If that's going to be problematic, please write to me. I believe that I have all the possible articles. I think that quite interesting ones that I can share if we're talking about those topics. So something what is connected with technology, artificial intelligence, using different kind of possibilities of the systems is the topic of algorithmic management. And again, the topic is quite new. So probably if you're just going to ask an open question, what do you think about algorithmic management? I can imagine that some of your clients will tell you, I have no idea because I don't know what that is, which is great because then they can also expand their business knowledge. So definitely the topic for a discussion. I think that the one which is lately very popular is the topic about the generations, different kind of the challenges connected with collaboration between the generations, among the generations, the topic of Gen Z, and they are usually unfortunately assumed to be like quite, unfortunately again I will say, lazy and not dedicated. So we have a lot of stereotypes about that particular type of the generation. So for sure that's a topic which is also worth to talk about. I already mentioned today overemployment. I recommend that topic as well, especially if we're talking about managers and probably IT. Colors of organizations, that's also something what I was mentioning. So for example, red, orange, green, and especially of course teal like turkus organizations. I think that I would also recommend the topic of digital dexterity, which is connected with the fact that nowadays, probably without quite advanced uh, skills connected with, of course, technologies, it's quite difficult to be successful in business. So probably this is also the topic for discussion. Reskilling, I guess something that I would recommend as well, especially that it's connected with different kind of the approach dependent on the market. Because if we talk about the Polish market, for many years we were quite closed to move from one department to another, or to look for the job where, for example, earlier we worked, let's say, in the procurement department, and right now we would like to requalify and reskill, let's say, to the accounting department. Because of the market, it is changing. So I guess that the topic of requalifying, reskilling can be quite attractive. Meaningful social impact together with the sustainability, which is related to a bit different idea of running the business without concentration only on profits, but of course delivering a little bit more of the value. The topic of big data, definitely something very important, because a lot of companies, they right now managing a lot of data. They not necessarily even know how to do it. So I think I would recommend it. The topic for maybe mainly managers, although no, maybe sorry. I should rather say that for everybody. The topic of the VUCA world and bunny world. For many years, the first one was very, very popular and hot topic. But during pandemic, we understood that we have to focus not only on the volatile, changeable environment, but we have to understand that for people living in that very dynamic, changeable environment is challenging. So we have to also manage people's emotions. Management from 1.0 to 4.0, cross-cultural communication, definitely, because right now it's even difficult to work in a very standardized environment. Usually we have people from different environments, different cultures. That's, of course, again, this topic of diversity and inclusion. I guess that business continuity, that can be important topic for the clients who work in project management, who are managers. So that will be something very important, together with defining the ideas, how we can secure the critical roles in the company together with their backups. Situational leadership, definitely a good topic for leaders, for managers. The same 5 dysfunctions of the team. So what we need, or what can happen in the team if we don't have, for example, trust and safety. So all that topics, I guess I could recommend them for the purpose of any kind of a discussion. And I mentioned also at the very beginning that if you wish to still continue expansion of your business vocabulary, I mean, of course, the practical one, and if hopefully that topic which I was leading today was valuable for you, I can definitely invite you to our 2 fan pages, where on a daily basis you can find some valuable vocabulary. Of course, almost all that vocabulary is related to business, something that you can find in business in practice. There are some recommendations of podcasts and articles that I'm always choosing very carefully. I use them together with my clients. So I know that each kind of article, each kind of podcast, which I recommend, it's something what I already did, talked about, discussed with my clients. So you can treat it as a source of inspiration. And on the other hand, if you also want to listen to some practical business processes, I can invite you to our YouTube channel. What I do there is that I share there 3 types of the videos. Webinars, which will usually take around 1 hour, and they are definitely connected with business knowledge expansion. There are also some short videos around 15 minutes, which are dedicated to some particular types of the processes, and shorts with some single short processes where I'm just sharing some kind of information about typical business vocabulary. I hope that you liked my today's topic. If anything is not going to be clear, please contact me. And of course, please feel welcome to write to me. I will, I hope, address all the issues. If you need any additional information connected, for example, with that two processes or the business trends, which I was mentioning, please let me know and I will gladly answer all the possible questions. Thank you very much, and I'm wishing you a wonderful day.